Before the missing section, the gods decided to send a flood to destroy humanity. Enki, god of the underworld sea of fresh water and equivalent of the Babylonian Ea, warns Ziusidra, the ruler of Shuruppak, to build a large boat, although the directions for the boat are also lost. Shuruppak, modern Tel Farah, was an ancient Sumerian city located about 55 kilometers south of Nippur and 30 kilometers north of ancient Uruk on the banks of the Euphrates in the Iraqi governorate of Al-Qaziyah. Shuruppak was Ninlil, also called Sud. The first 36 lines of the primary tablet from Nippur are lost, although they may appoint themselves to discuss the creation of man and animals, and probably spoke of the dissolute existence of humanity before civilization, as the fragment from UR shows. The surviving portion begins with a monologue from Nintur, the goddess who gave birth to humanity, where she calls humans from a vagrant existence as nomads to build cities, temples, and become both sedentary and civilized. After the monologue, there is another missing section that does not resume until another 36 lines later, and at this point humans are still in a nomadic state. The missing section may have spoken of a first unsuccessful attempt by humans to establish civilization. When the text resumes, Nintur is still planning to provide kingship and organization to humans. Then the first cities are named, starting with Eridu, whose leadership Nintur placed under Nudimmud, then Batibara, Larak, Sapar, and finally Shuruppak. The cities were established as distributive, non-monetary economies. Another gap, missing section, of 34 lines continues. The fragment from the library of Ashurbanipal, as well as independent evidence from the Sumerian king list, suggests that this section included the naming of more cities and their rulers. What comes next is a statement that humans began to make noises that angered the gods. Enlil in particular was completely unable to sleep due to humanity and made the radical decision to deal with it by destroying humanity with a flood. The god Enki informs a human, Ziusidra, probably a priest, of this decision and advises him to build a boat to save himself and a few of every living creature. Ziusidra builds the boat, enters it with his family and the animals, and the gods unleash the flood, although the exact wording is unclear as another gap appears in this section. Humanity and the rest of life survive, and again the text breaks off. In the early epic Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata, the main events, which focus on Enmerkar's construction of the ziggurats in Uruk and Eridu, are described as taking place at a time before Dilmun was yet settled. Dilmun, sometimes described as the place where the sun rises and the land of life, is the setting of some versions of the Eridu Genesis and the place where the deified Sumerian hero of the flood, Utnapishtim, Ziusidra, was allowed by the gods to live forever. Thorkild Jacobson's translation of the Eridu Genesis calls it Mount Dilmun, which he locates as a far-off, semi-mythical place. Dilmun is also described in the epic story of Enki and Ninhursag as the place where creation took place. For Dilmun, the land of my lady's heart, I will create long waterways, rivers, and canals, with water flowing to quench the thirst of all beings and bring abundance to all life. During the Bronze Age, the island of Bahrain rose to become an important trading center due to the region's unique presence of fresh water from artesian springs that have now dried up. The strategically favorable location on the sea trade route between Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley further promoted Dilmun's prosperity and importance. Ziusidra, the last king of Shuruppak before the flood according to the Sumerian king list, landed in Dilmun after the flood according to the Sumerian flood story. Sargon of Akkad, ca. 2356 to 2300 BC, states that ships from Dilmun called at his port. The kingdom of Elam, which controlled the trade in tin, also maintained close contact with Dilmun. Since about 2050 BC in the 4th century BC, there was an independent kingdom of Dilmun, which is mentioned sporadically in Mesopotamian texts, but is also known from own textual witnesses from Bahrain and Phalaika. Texts are known from Isin that mention royal gifts to Dilmun. In the war between Merciless III and Hattusilas III, Arzawa was for the former. When the latter triumphed, it became independent. Walusa was an ally of Ahiawa and Milawanda was a vassal. In Lucca the situation is little known, but it seems that there was a dismay and the region was put under the leadership of a man named Tawabalawa, the brother of Halianatus Parhahara Suwanta of the region of Ahiawa, who was determined to identify himself with the Greek hero Ethel, who was soon in control of the kingdom of Hate, and the son of the region, whose region is the region of the country, the region of the region of the region, the region of the region of the country. The region of the border districts of Wasawada and Harpadawana fell into the hands of Lucca. The adventurer Payamaradu of Lasba, who could identify with the king of the city of Akio with the support of the Ahiawa and Milawanda, invaded the Hittite territory of the city of Milawanda and conquered the land of the Halaya River and reached the lower Hittite land to Nahida. Hattusa marched against the hills and drove them out of the lower land and the Halaya River, but without reaching the west coast, and probably not to the west coast. He then appointed his nephew Kurunta, Harita's son Muwatalis II, as king of a large kingdom in the southwest of the city of Tarhuntissa. In the following years, Kurunta ruled the coast to the south and west to the Castorea River, the Greek Kestros, and the city of Parha in the Pamphil Plain. Got it?